Are you ready? Another security tip. And today we're going to be talking about passwords without multi-factor authentication. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to speak about it, but I have to. I felt compelled to because I still seeing users and corporations who don't have multi-factor authentication and they're leveraging naked passwords. So let's talk about some stuff in the security news, right? As you can see here, that it's a big problem keeping passwords safe. I know people are working on situations where you don't need passwords anymore, but you still use them today. But it has to be a better way to protect them. And one way you can do that today is adding a second form of authentication to it, right? And not only if, in this case, your password is stolen because of negligence on a company, you don't have to pay the verifications. Yes, change and update it, of course, your password. But also, if you had a form of multi-factor, even if an attacker got your password, that person couldn't get into your account without the other form of authentication. So we need to understand what is 2FA and MFA, or two-factor authentication and multi-factor authentication. So it starts off with something you have, and in this case, an authenticator, and something that you know, in this case, a PIN or password. And then there's something that you are, risk level context, behavioral context, and biometrics are some forms that you can leverage to augment your password. So you might say, Sylvester, what does that truly mean? I need an example to really capture it so I can build correlation to why I really need it. So let's take an example of your front door at home. Your front door probably you may have one lock on it. Well, if you live in a neighborhood that's up and coming, but it's just not there yet, you might have two locks on it. And that second lock might be a deadbolt. It might be a chain lock where you can give some people access, but not 100% access to come in your house, right? That additional form of security. You might even have a third lock on it if you live in one of those really sketchy neighborhoods where you know good chance something's about to go down. So you got three locks on that bad boy. You might even have some video cameras in there, so on and so forth. If you got an organization, you got your data protected, you might have a guard outside of it. You might have a face recognition, a fingerprint, plus you need a badge to access it. So you got multiple factors to get in there. And these multiple factors deter some of the hackers out there from getting into your environment. Am I saying once you enable multi-factor, all your security problems go away? I'm not saying that. But if you have a limited budget and you want somewhere to start, identity access management is a great place to start. It can definitely save you from, leaving your passwords wide open, right? You need to have that a part of it. Just talk about how it currently is and where does it need to go. And we're seeing that transformation. So authentication is usually a passcode that generates over and over, right? You got one single data point and you have to do it over and over. It doesn't learn, it doesn't grow, it doesn't better, right? It just prompts you every time you log in, you need to put in that passcode, and that's the only way you can do it. But identity assurance is, who is that user? How confident are you in that user? And how much assurance is really required, right? So let's determine what is the criticality of that application or that user. Let's really learn that. And with SecurID Access, you can definitely do that, right? You can determine who has access, what can they have access, and where can they have access. And we can protect cloud and on-premises applications. And we can use a whole bunch of different ways of securing those applications. We can do a radius integration, right? We can do a SAML integration. We can do HTTP federation if your cloud application doesn't support SAML natively, but you want that single sign-on capabilities. And if you have a homegrown app that doesn't even support that, we can leverage trusted headers. So now that internal application can also have and experience that single sign-on capabilities. And there are also different developer kits where you can customize it to whatever you need it to be, right? And that's where the solution can act as a reverse proxy when we're talking about those HTTP federation as well as the trusted headers, and now it can provide that additional security that you was looking for. So not only are you protecting again those Salesforces, the Google Labs, the Office 365 Box, Workday, you can do the on-premises applications as well, VPN solutions. So I like to talk about authenticating your way, because that's what RSA SecurID Access allows you to do. I see a lot of people using push, Face ID, fingerprint, and the risk-based authentication, of course. And those are some of the things that you can leverage. So let's get into the additions and architecture. RSA did a great job at streamlining the different package and making it accessible to have a mobile MFA for all the different tiers and additions here, right? So the main difference between Base and Enterprises, Base is for those smaller organizations that have that one-to-one solutions in terms of they need one primary server, one replica server for the authentication manager, and they don't really need anything else, right? That one-to-one relationship is enough, and that's all they need. Whereas Enterprise, now I have one primary server and multiple replica servers because I need high availability or 100% uptime, fault tolerance capabilities. And if you don't know what that means, is think about it this way. You got a house, then you got a backup house, then you got multiple backup houses because one of your house get hit with a hurricane. Let's go to the next backup house because it's literally a carbon copy of it, and let's leverage that. So you don't want to have any downtime, so you want to ensure that you have that capabilities. And Premium, now you get the benefits of Enterprise and Base, but now you add on that risk-based context. And why would you want that risk-based context? Because it's going to reduce those authentications up to like 90% of the time. So it learns your behaviors and passes you in because the solution is smart enough to know this is Sly Gittins accessing his data from Tampa Bay, or these are the places that he usually travels, or his company said, you know what, Sly should never leave the country. Anytime anyone try to access it from outside the country, let's block that. Oh, let's block the IP address if he's local internally. So let's go into the visualization of it because I'm a strong believer in seeing it to believe it. So let's show you it. So hopefully that can help you retain the information a little bit better. So with the base edition, like we talked about, is that one-to-one relationship. When we're talking about the AM authentication manager server, you see at the bottom, that's going to be inside your internal network, right? And that allows you to have the hardware and your software tokens, and you could be able to handle that. So that's a traditional SecurID access architecture. You can also add in there the IDR, the identity router. And if you haven't watched my video on deploying and understanding the ID router, I made 2 different videos that dives into that a lot deeper than we're going to cover today. You can use that for Radius, single sign-on, and connect to your Active Directory or LDAP server to gather your user's credentials and import that in there, right? And then you also got the hosted service. That's a part of it as well. So that's going to give you the ability to do push notifications and other biometrics. You also have another piece of it is the mobile authentication piece, right? So that builds out the entire solution. But for the base, we really just want to focus on that it has that one-to-one. And now with the enterprise, you can see that the authentication manager piece to the left-hand side is 1 to 15 again. And you can do a lot of bulk admin tools. Again, these tools are for those larger organizations to make it easy to deploy the traditional infrastructure. With the IDR, you can deploy that pretty quickly. You don't have to worry about some of the restrictions with that, but you get to leverage the traditional infrastructure as well. And then with Premium, this is where I see people tend to lean towards this because the price differential is so minuscule that it just makes sense to go with a premium. And if you have any SaaS-based applications, you can integrate it pretty smoothly in there and start leveraging that intelligent authentication or identity insurance to reduce those amount of logins that your customers need to have or your clients need to have, right? And then it gives you the ability to define policy and context, not only to the application, but to the user. Really get granular with that so that you can ensure the right people are only getting access to your environment. So let's go. This is a quick example of an overview of an architecture. If you deployed everything, you don't need to deploy everything. You can just have the identity router that's sitting in that DMZ and not have anything on the bottom or vice versa. You can have everything internally and not have the top if you're just using hardware as a software token, and it's pretty flexible. So let's go into a few different use cases that you can leverage it in. So you just want to extend your SecurID to protect cloud-based sources. You can do that by just adding the IDR in your DMZ and then connecting it to your SAML-based applications and having that integration, and continue to have your authentication manager protecting your on-premises applications, right? So you can definitely do that. And then the second one you can do is having the RSA handle your radius, the internal applications. And then the third one would be also having to do your radius, but also your SAML, your SaaS-based applications, all from the cloud servers without even deploying an authentication manager server. And deploying the IDR literally takes minutes. I showcase it in my other videos, and so you should take a look at those and see how easy it is to set up. This is going to be quickly installed. To sum up everything, passwords alone, it's not a great idea. We saw how easy it is, or we saw companies that in recent months that got hacked. Your password has got a good chance of being hacked and stolen. So just don't leave it by itself. Add on MFA. You will be happier that you installed MFA into your environment. The great example of this is if you have a Facebook, a LinkedIn account, go in there and activate that on your personal side, right? The multi-factor authentication for corporate users, leverage SecurID Access. You can even have your LinkedIn actually a part of your single sign-on for your authentication through SecurID if you allow that access in your corporation, right? Add it on there. Identity access management isn't the only type of security you need in your environment. It's just a part of your security posture. So make sure you start here. If you got limited budget and you want to be a little bit more secure, protect your user identities because it can keep you and your company out of the newspaper. Thanks for your time. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell to stay notified.